I have a little small display on the back that gives pictures of my family and ancestors. If you want to take a look at it after I finish giving the presentation. In the 1800s, a group of families composed of former slaves and freemen settled in Bader's Crossroads, Virginia. This group of families had learned to rely on God for their well-being, for the road they traveled was extremely difficult. This deep belief in religion made them realize that only by working and worshiping together could they survive in their new surroundings. John Bell, my great-grandfather, was born into slavery in 1825 in North Carolina. Because he was the son of a plantation owner, he was able to acquire an education. John Bell's father was not only a planter, but he was also a politician who made many trips to Washington, D.C. Our great-grandfather was trained as a carpenter and a coachman, and he made these trips with him. We don't know much about his life as a slave other than he married his first wife before the Civil War, but she died without birthing any children. By 1866, John Bell had left the plantation and come to Washington, D.C. Here he was employed by the federal government in the U.S. Patent Office and was also an evangelist minister. In 1866, John Bell married Margaret Cole. From this union, 9 children were born, one of which was my grandmother, Clara Tolliver Bell, who was born in Bader's Crossroads in 1877. She grew up here and graduated from a normal school with a major in education. Phyllis talked about her aunts going to normal school. For those of you who don't know, a normal school at that time was equivalent to a 4-year university today. On August the 29th, 1876, John Bell, a former Washington, D.C. resident, purchased 50 acres of land in the Bader's Crossroads area from Miles Munson at a cost of $2,500. This parcel of land, located in the county of Fairfax, was part of the Oakton tract lying south of Columbia Pike. John Bell was able to purchase this land from Miles Munson because his son died in a house fire on the property. And after the tragic occurrence, he no longer wanted the property. The Munsons were not aware that John Bell was an African American, because he could pass for white. John Bell's house was built on the property south of Columbia Pike. There were other large tracts of land purchased by free African Americans in the Bader's Crossroads during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Descendants of those original families still live on these parcels of land. Some of the original landowners were Eliza Pinkett, Alice Walker, Martha Jones, Henry Warner, William Ball, Sandy Norris, and Edward White. In 1881, 1 acre of land was donated to the African American citizens of Bader's Crossroads, Virginia, by Mr. B.H. Warner, a white citizen of Washington, D.C., for the erection of a church or a school. The deed stipulated that the building erected should be named after the donor. Therefore, it was named Warner Baptist Church. In the early days, the worshipers communed together in a small group of trees on the site where this present church stands. Presiding in these meetings in the grove were various speakers from different walks of life. When temperatures did not permit outside service, they were held in an old store on Columbia Pike. In the year 1919, after continued expansion in the growth of the community and in the church membership, a dream that had been harbored by those believed for approximately 30 years became a realization. A committee was formed to work together to formalize the organization of the church and break ground for the church building. This committee consisted of the following persons: James Dean, Walter Powell, Henry Terrell, Clarence Summers, my grandfather, Gertrude Marshall, and Brother Joyce Hopkins. In 1870, Fairfax County, Virginia established a segregated public school system. 408 African American children were enrolled in these one-room schools. The school population increased to 1,150 by 1899. A teacher's salary in the 1870s was about $1 per day. The average time school was in session was 6 months. At that time, schools went to grades 6 or 7. African American students were not able to attend high school in Fairfax County until Luther Jackson was completed in 1954. John Bell was interested in education as well as religion. He was an African American landowner in Mason's District and active in the Freedmen's Bureau. He provided a 5-acre tract of land near Columbia Pike for a public school in the 1800s. One of Fairfax County's first public schools, this small frame building was used for several years by black children until it was closed and the tract reverted to John Bell's ownership as his deed specified. The Freedmen's Bureau, a government agency, had been formed in 1865 by Congress to protect, care for the educated, and educate formerly enslaved persons and Civil War refugees. Confirmed by the Supreme Court in 1896 and reinforced by the Virginia State Constitution of 1902, it became the accepted standard of behavior that black citizens of the state of Virginia should be provided separate but equal tax-supported facilities that would keep them apart from white citizens. This practice continued until Fairfax County desegregated its school system in 1965. During the early decades of the 20th century, no local school provided for black students in Beta's Crossroads. For a few years, children walked to a one-room school at Mount Pleasant where youthful Mrs. Lillian Carey was principal. In the 1920s, classes were held at Warner Baptist Church in Beta's Crossroads. Mrs. Lillian Carey was the principal. Later, the school was moved to a small frame building which was built and operated by the county until it closed in 1948. Life for children who attended these colored 1, 2, or 3-room schools was far from easy. Many had to walk long distances to reach them. The colored school built in Beta's Crossroads by Fairfax County had 3 rooms. The first and second grades were in one room, the second and third grades were in the middle room, and the 5th, 6th, and 7th grades were in the third room. Each room had a coal stove. Water came from a well with a pump, and bathroom facilities were outhouses. There was one bathroom for the girls and one for the boys. During cold weather, the boys had to keep the fires going by carrying wood or coal and keeping the stoves clean. They also had to clean the outhouses and make certain that they were supplied with lime. The girls were responsible for keeping the school bus and classrooms clean. In the colored schools during the 1930s and 40s, social activities involved daily recess sessions where students played baseball, horseshoes, dodgeball, and double dutch jump rope. During the month of May, the school celebrated May Day, or Field Day, which she showed on the screen. Many years ago, May 1st, or May Day, was a magical time to welcome spring. This was a day of fun and enjoyment. Everyone in the school participated. Games went on for the entire day, climaxed by the rapping of the maypole. During non-school hours, the school was used to hold dances. Music was played from recordings, and on special occasions, a live band composed of local musicians played. Typically, the food served were hot dogs, sodas, and potato chips. Health care was also provided by the county. Students received screenings to determine if they had vision, hearing, or dental problems. Finally, every student received a cod liver oil salt gel daily. If you remember that, you got one every day.